Keynote. So, what are we planning to do today? I think one is to really connect to why are we here. Really, it is important to look at what is going on with South Asia. Why are we coexisting as a movement? What's really on? Want to just do a quick recap of the previous SAYCs. I want to touch the previous SAYCs and look at what all were the focuses and what transpired in the previous SAYCs. Uh, there are some key decisions that we're looking at the South Asian Youth Conference level, and that's where I would like to hear from each of you on what your sense is of these decisions, and then a little bit of our way forward, which means how, if you want to continue participating in the South Asian movement, what is it that you really need to do, and what is the best way to engage with South Asia? So that I think is the core plan for the day. So before I start on why are we here, I just want to say that we are in the middle of a miraculous era. It's a really great time. We may not realize it, but it's a really great time because here we are, one at an online event at absolutely no cost. Now that may sound really obvious, but it is not, because each of us would have paid, flown around, burnt carbon, and also incurred costs in terms of staying, hosting. Of course, meeting face to face has its own joy, as the previous SAYC participants also know. But at the same time, doing an event online and at no cost is a very, very fresh new possibility. And what is interesting is people from different countries have logged in. Like right now, if you look at your attendee list, the 15 people who are present here are from at least 4 or 5 different countries, and I think that's something that is a miracle. Uh, and more importantly, this is not only online activities. There are offline activities that are happening across borders. There is going to be an event in Bombay and another event in Karachi and an alumni meetup in Nepal. So while there is online communication and while there is online connecting, it's not only online, because we do feel that there is value to having blood and flesh connections also, connections, physical connections also. So there are also offline activities happening, and these offline activities again are happening without any without anything else except the drive for South Asia, the spirit, honoring the spirit of South Asia. The third is, this conference we're going to do mostly the same things that we did at a typical SAYC. So drafting a declaration, having some webinars, connecting to each other. So the alumni hangout becomes a space where different people connect to each other. The offline workshops happen, the declaration gets drafted. So all of this, which is traditionally happen in person, and which happens when only a small group of people who have the resources to make it can do it. Here we are doing this same things without barriers to participation, of course, except internet connection and downloading GoToMeeting and so on. But apart from that, this makes this possible. I mean, today we're looking at a possibility where many more such people will be able to access our work and connect to each one. And I think this is awesome. I think this is the possibility of a new world. We are going to be able to create a new world with these raw materials, particularly technology, but not only technology along with our commitment to really make this happen in South Asia. Uh, we came together because of our shared history and culture. So just to look at why we came together, the idea was, when we looked at South Asia, we saw that there is really such similarity in South Asians. When you look at anybody from South Asia, you really cannot tell which country are they from. And yet, when we really look at within South Asia, we are among the most conflicted regions in the world. So I'm just going to look at what's happening with South Asian youth globally. So the first one is, we are grossly underrepresented on international platforms, which means if you really look at our proportion, we are probably a quarter of the world's youth population. But on any international forum, whether it's a UN negotiation or whether it is any climate change talk, you do not see young people from South Asia, and definitely not in the proportion that we exist. Uh, And this underrepresentation is primarily because participation into these events is, one, it is resource intensive, and second, it needs information access. So both of these are problems because things are very expensive for us. We come from one of the poorer regions of the world, lesser developed regions of the world, and information about where this is happening has been very exclusive. It's not been easy. And so, at the major group of children and youth, also, if you see South Asians, while there are brothers and sisters, uh, they do not typically reside in South Asia. They'd be outside South Asia and engaging in this kind of work. So basically, the first big issue I think is that we are really underrepresented. We do not. We're really not present at these platforms. The second one that comes to me is we can do with much more confidence. And I say this based on very personal experiences around having attended these events. And I do sense a general underconfidence in South Asia. The fact that we come from a background which is different, a background that is not particularly well endowed, perhaps, and not with enough exposure. I would say that we are also, I mean, in terms of confidence, I think the fact that we are coming from one of the fastest growing regions of the world, I think is a big plus, and also our numbers, I think, are something that's a huge plus that we should really look at. The third is we don't count with our governments. So if we really look at our governments, they're completely ignorant of us in the sense that they do acknowledge us. We do exist. If you look at Nepal, we had the prime minister coming into Nepal. If we look at Pakistan, we had Hina Rabbani coming in. We had the information broadcasting minister Kamran Akmal coming in. So we are engaging with the government, but we exist just as another event. And there are so many such events that are existing. If you really look at most young people in governments, these are already relatives of existing politicians and people in power, which means that even with our governments, we really don't matter. And when I say we, I mean young people don't really matter. And the fourth is we are not the most organized movement. And I'm going to compare this to what I consider the most organized movement, which is the European Union. And I think the European Union has a lot of cooperation, a lot of connections between people uh, and organizations. Of course, they have a lot of funding to do the same thing also. But overall, I think that makes a big difference. That being an organized movement lets you represent, lets you share information, have common stands, organize common events, and we are not the most organized movement. And I think that's also an area of concern. Uh,